up? Because you're in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit, KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Coming up this week, it's Friday in the Hoodwood. Matt Friday joins me, chopping up about NBA, NFL, and anything else we can think about. We got a fat dap, head slap, and a plethora of sports information, discussion, debate, all straight ahead. It's Sports from the Hoodwood. Fasten your seatbelts. And let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where the video finally works. And I think I have my man Matt Friday, who we tried to chop it up with a couple 3 weeks ago, but he forgot to turn his video camera on, so we didn't even get to see his what do you call it, man whore mug.
Not a topic we
Thanks
need
for
to go
coming
into
this week, and we will just start right out with the All-Star game rosters being picked. LeBron and Kevin Durant choosing their respective teams. And as I will put the graphic up, but you can see on your chat that how Team LeBron has his team and Kevin Durant has his team full of, how should I put it, all-stars. Interesting that both the Jazz stars were left out. I should say left out. They were last pick. Rudy Gobert for Durant and Donovan Mitchell being the last Mr. Irrelevant, if you will, for Team Durant. Now, of course, Kevin Durant not playing. I believe it was Sabonis, Demontis Sabonis of the Pacers, was selected as an alternate. And Devin Booker, who I thought should have been an all-star, should have been a selection all the way around. He gets picked up. He has an alternate for the place of Anthony Davis. Looking over the all-stars, did you see anybody that got snubbed? Do you think these are balanced teams? Who has the advantage in the all-star game? Now, the all-star game's in Atlanta, not Indianapolis. They decided, okay, we're going to just put everybody in Atlanta. And, of course, James Harden is probably happiest about that. He has his choice of strip clubs, but that's neither here nor there. Talk to me what you think about these rosters, Matt. What do you think? Was a good balance? Does one team have a definite advantage over the other? I mean, I know you're just taking the first look at it, but what do you think?
I mean, Team LeBron usually ends up winning these for some reason, right? Ever since he's been the captain, I don't think he's lost. So, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and straight up say he probably wins this, mainly because Durant's not playing. I mean, if Durant was playing, then it'd be a whole different ball game. But let's see. I mean, the biggest snub so far that I see personally is where's Trae Young? I think Trae Young's
somebody from the Hawks would get in for the All-Star.
Right, because they have a pretty good record, right? I mean, they're at least above 500, unlike, I guess, like the Celtics and the Wizards.
Hawks are, no, actually, they're 16 and 20.
They are?
Yeah, Hawks are 16 and 20 as of.
So they dropped.
They're 5-5 their last 10. So, I mean, they're behind.
Yeah. Well, the biggest one was I didn't know why they picked Chris Paul over Booker originally. Now Booker got in because Anthony Davis couldn't play, right? But
Devin Booker,
Chris Paul's more valuable. Yeah, but see, Chris Paul to me was more valuable to the Sun, but he's not a better all-star than Devin Booker, right? Like, he brings leadership and, all that, intangibles, but Booker to me is just a better player at this age for,
At this stage of the game, I'm thinking Devin Booker should have been a no no-brainer all-star. And the fact
Oh
that he
yeah,
was snubbed in favor of a lot of other players. But I'm looking at the list. The only one that I even have a little bit of beef with may be Chris Paul on this team, because I'm going through the list of all-stars, and who do you take off? If you don't have, if you're
Jalen
putting
Brown.
Devin Booker in, okay, aside from Chris Paul, who would you put Devin Booker in over? Because I'm looking at,
Can I take someone out of the East? Out of the East, I take out Jalen Brown. Uh, I don't really think he's that great. I mean, the Celtics to me are underperforming this year, and I don't see why they have both Tatum and Jalen Brown in the All Star.
right?
I can see Tatum. Tatum's a beast. I like him, but Jalen Brown to me, he played well at the beginning, but they both kind of fell off. But that's East, so I
Right.
would have put Trey Young in instead of Jalen Brown. So like that's how I play it. I can't say, oh, we snubbed somebody without telling you who I would take out. In the East, I would have taken out Jalen Brown for Trey Young. In the West, Chris Paul for sure. I would have taken him out for Booker originally, or what's his name? Forget who it is. Oh no, Jokic is in.
Jokic
I
is
meant
in.
Jam. Yeah, because Jokic is in, but where is what's his name? Where'd he go? Jamal Murray's not
Murray,
in,
Jamal
right?
Murray. That's who I was looking for. I'm like going through it, go,
That was
where's
like
Jamal Murray?
somebody's missing here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Jamal Murray.
going through it, like, where's Jamal Murray at? Like, I would say Trey Young and Jamal Murray, I think, were the two biggest snubs. Trey Young, especially because the game's in Atlanta.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, missed
Jamal
opportunity there.
Murray, I'm thinking he's been playing, him and Jokic are keeping the Nuggets afloat in the West. I mean, because the Nuggets have badly underperformed this year, but you look at the standings and you're going, could be a lot worse. I mean, the Nuggets are 21-15. They could, I mean, without Murray and Jokic playing as beastly as they've been, they could probably be
Yeah,
fighting for one of those 7 to 10 spots, because,
right.
7 to 10 now gets in the playoffs for those one game elimination knockout rounds. But Murray and Jokic have kept the Nuggets afloat. Now,
I'm surprised Jeremy Grant was that much of a difference. I thought he was more of a
but
rotational piece, but he's made a big difference.
he brought the Nuggets some toughness. I mean, there's always been that knock about European players. Jokic has always been a tough player, but Jeremy Grant gave that kind of backline toughness that somebody like Jokic maybe get a little pushed around a little bit, but Grant was there to be more of an enforcer, I think, down the block.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, Grant was also just versatile. They like put him on LeBron in the playoffs. They put him on a bunch of people, so he was just versatile defender. He wasn't like the greatest defender, but
No, he wasn't the greatest
also.
defender, but he was so useful in a multitude of different ways. Now, we'll shift gears a little bit. Now, we discussed this earlier, and I said the unpopular opinion. Now, there's always going to be talk when you get about the All-Star break about who the MVP is. Now, LeBron's going to be the MVP candidate regardless. As long as the boy is walking on a basketball court, he's going to be one of those that they're going to say, okay, MVP candidate.
Right.
James
Right.
Harden is another one that has gotten a lot of run for MVP, though I don't think he deserves it. But a lot of the media is saying that. The thinking man's choice, at least my choice, and I say it's an unpopular choice, I think Joel Embiid should be the front runner for the MVP, because I think you take him off the Sixers are a borderline lottery team. You take Harden off of the Nets are still good. The Nets have KD, they have Kyrie. KD's taking basically coasting past the All-Star break because he knows he doesn't have to come back because Harden and Kyrie are doing the damn thing in Brooklyn. But
Right.
you take, I mean, and everybody knows it's LeBron fatigue. And I've said this over and over again. Everybody knows LeBron is the engine that drives the Lakers. That goes without saying. But take him out of the equation. You're looking between Harden and Embiid, who I think Embiid, who has been averaging close to 28 points a game, he has been putting up fantastic numbers all the way around. And something that is really surprising to me, he's been durable this year. Because Embiid has been one of those that have been like,
but he
I
still
said
took
28
off
points,
a couple of
averaging
games.
30.2 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been surprisingly durable this year.
For Joel Embiid,
But
yes. He
Joel
still
Embiid, that's what
didn't
I'm
play
saying.
all the games.
But the thing
Fair.
is it a fair assessment to say that Joel Embiid should be getting a lot more running pub as an MVP candidate?
Before Anthony Davis got injured, I would have said it was clearly LeBron, Jokic, Mitchell, or Joel Embiid. Those were my 4 front runners, right? Then when Anthony Davis went down and Schroeder went down, LeBron didn't do anything to gain headspace. He didn't lose headspace, but he didn't gain anything. He could have separated really big, in my opinion, if he dominated and they went, I don't know, 7-2. But what did they go, 4-5?
4-5, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, he didn't do enough for me to say he's the front runner anymore. Joel Embiid did enough to me to say he's the front runner, even though I don't believe he's technically MVP, because I just don't see it. I don't know why. I just don't see it. He's a dominant player. He's the best big man in the game because, nobody else plays it like him. But he's a little soft, in my opinion. He's a little too reliable. And I just can't get over the flopping, dude. I can't get over it. Those literally against Donovan Mitchell, nobody touched him. He goes down and asks for techs against people. I'm like, the antics are there.
That was kind of a bitch boy move. But
right. But here's my thing.
Looking at his numbers, his recent numbers, 23 against the Mavs, 42 against the Cavs, 24-13 against the Pacers in a win, 40-19 against the Jazz, albeit an overtime game, but still 40 points. You can't, 2 out of his last 3
He's
games,
dominant.
Points, and 4 of his last 5, he's cracked double digits and rebounds without breaking sweat, and nearly had 20 against the Jazz.
Yeah. But here's my thing. I just still think Ben Simmons is a big factor in there. You're saying if you take Joel Embiid off the team, they're a lottery team? I don't think so. I think if Joel Embiid wasn't there, Ben Simmons would step up in a different way that he can't, because they just clash. And I'm still surprised they did not trade him, right? Mm-hmm. They had that trade out there and they said they wanted to trade him for Harden, and that would have made a lot of sense. But just to me, it just seems like I would more go the route Doc Rivers deserves a lot of praise for making Joel Embiid this way, because I think it's more of a knock on Brett Brown that he couldn't do this with Joel, right?
Brett Brown could only do so much. I mean, you give him credit for sticking with the process, if you will, and developing the Sixers. And the Sixers went from god awful to passable to at least a team that was a tough out in the East. But
right,
felt like they could only go so far. It only felt like there was a lid on their potential, and Doc Rivers has taken that lid off, especially Joel Embiid. I would say especially him. I mean, you're looking at his last 10 games, he's averaging 32 points, 13.2 rebounds. He has, I think, developed his game and taken it to the next level. And I think Doc Rivers had a lot of things got to do with that. And I think that's what makes him an MVP candidate. Even though a lot of people are saying, Joel Embiid, no. You want to give it to Harden. You want to give it to
no, Harden can't be MVP. What's it called? If you have Durant and Irving on your team, you can't be MVP because literally you're not even the most valuable player on your own team. Durant is.
Well, you know how the media gets about some players. I mean, Harden has been.
Granted, Harden is playing his best basketball yet, like his cleanest basketball.
Right.
Like the assists and everything like that, that is something to marvel at.
Him dishing out dimes, surprise, is really surprising.
But to me, all this is showing me, this whole Embiid thing is, who the fuck's gonna guard him in that Sixers Nets matchup? You
Yeah,
tell me DeAndre Jordan's gonna get out there for 36 minutes to guard him? That ain't happening, dude.
DeAndre Jordan's not going to get out there. Kevin Durant would. That'd be an interesting matchup, him and Durant. But somebody's going to have to deal with Simmons. And if Simmons can look like he actually cares.
That's the one thing I don't get. Like, everybody kind of boosted up, like Tobias Harris with Doc Rivers went back to how he looked with the Clippers, like a decent player, because last year he looked awful. But Ben Simmons is the only one I'm still not seeing improvement from. And I'm just like, is it a character thing, or did he just reach his ceiling? Because I remember when he came out, he was like the next LeBron. He was like the Prince or whatever. And I'm like, he just can't shoot.
I've never seen it. I mean, and this is another unpopular opinion that Ben Simmons, I don't think he's all that. He shows flashes.
He's another one that shouldn't be in the All-Star game.
If you could do that for 35, 40 minutes a night and not one play and then take the rest of the quarter off and look like, whatever, I'm here, I'm making the money, whatever. And it's like he barely cares. Like he's barely there. And when he plays like he really gives a crap, him and Embiid are unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. But they have a good duo.
He plays like he cares. And it's too few and far between. And I say it's unpopular. Oh, he doesn't have a jump shot. He's weak on the boards. He's like, as big as you are, you should be a force on the board. Oh, he's a passer. He's a distributor. Okay, if you're a passer and a distributor, but people are like, oh, he's got them handles, you better back off. He's not going to beat you with a jump shot because he doesn't have one. And he has been reluctant to develop one. And if I'm a defender, I'm giving him 5 feet and going, you want that shot? Shoot your shot. But you not.
He already took his shot, dude, and he made it. He got Kendall Jenner, dude. He got that shot. He took his shot and made it. He don't need no other shot. But she took his soul along with him. When she left him.
Like I said,
his basketball soul is gone.
That's that Kardashian curse I was telling you about. And that's going to ruin him, I'm telling you. We're going to take a time out, come back, we're going to discuss the future of certain NFL quarterbacks in this. A certain team in a certain city with a logo on the star logo on the side of their head will pay that man his money, or they will continue to jerk him around. We will discuss that once Hoodwood comes back at you.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Now here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks, your host, KJ Green.
Last Friday, I am KJ Green, and we had talked about it earlier. We were chopping up about the NFL, and I know before we move on to NFL, I know you expressed dismay, Matt, about Paul George making the All-Star team. Now, Kawhi is a no-brainer for the All-Star team, but you have a problem with Paul George being on the All-Star team. Would you have substituted someone else out? And if so, who?
I mean, personally, anybody in the West, but I mean, I think it's still a good, like a snub that Alex Caruso didn't get in last year. I wanted him to get in, because he's the Caruso, the Caru goat, however you want to phrase it.
Paper
That
boy,
man,
the pizza delivery guy.
exactly, my DoorDash delivery dude, going in, flying in like an eagle, scoring buckets. But no, PG 13% should never be an all-star
You
anymore
are just,
until he stops throwing out bricks.
you are
Him
just.
and Kawhi Leonard were throwing bricks at the end of that game.
Yeah, we know that it was like all the brick. We thought they were part of the Masons because as many bricks as they were laying up. It's like, come
Right?
on, man, what's wrong with you?
Right.
But
But now you can't blame Doc Rivers anymore,
oh
right?
no,
He's
no,
gone.
I really
But
can't.
Montrezl Harrell was the problem. Oh, wait, no, he's gone too. So I'm not really sure what's going on with them this time.
Well, the Clippers are still at least halfway decent. So
Oh, no, they're good. They're good. They're good. I just.
break for now. But come a month from now, if we're talking about what's wrong with the Clippers, then we can really do a real deep dive. But let's transition to the NFL. There's a lot of players that are going to be that have been on the move. Franchise tags come out next week.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest names that we're talking about, of course, Dak, pay that man his money, Prescott. Russell Wilson has talked about there's a list of teams that he wants to go to. Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans are basically going through an absolutely painful divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Roethlisberger took a pay cut, but he stayed with the Steelers. Let's start with Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. Do you think it's feasible that those two iconic franchise quarterbacks be traded for one?
Feasible, yes. Likely, no. Because, I mean, Jerry Jones would have to let go of his ego and still sign and trade him, right? So, I mean, I don't see it happening. I just don't know why. It's a super risk for the Seahawks because you don't know what you're gonna get. Dak just broke his leg. Like, what kind of a person are you getting back? So it's hard for me to see the Seahawks be like, oh, okay, cool. We'll take this unknown and we'll give you Russell Wilson without them overpaying in a way and giving at least 2 ones with Dak, and I don't see the Cowboys doing that.
Somebody's going to come off of a lot of ones or twos or something like that. I'm thinking
it's going to be the Raiders.
Draft picks are going to get exchanged one way or the other. I'm looking at risk reward. It seems that Dak Prescott has worn out. I would say worn out his welcome in Dallas, but it seems that Jerry Jones is. I don't want to pay this man Mahomes money, which that's what he's looking for.
Right.
Russell Wilson could get Mahomes money if he wanted, but
True.
Dak Prescott, he's won what? One playoff game, if I remember correctly.
I think
he's
so.
Won
I think
playoff game. He's an injury risk, but he's still owed a franchise. If you franchise him, you got to pay him the average of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So he's going to be making somewhere in the neighborhood of $35, $40 million for the 1 year. But that's 3 strikes and you're out. You franchise him 3 times. You can't franchise a player no more than 3 times. So the once if they do the franchise on March 8th, then the clock starts ticking. Because then you have till July 15th to sign him to a long-term deal. Barring that, he plays on the 1-year franchise tender. Week 17, week 18, whatever week it is, they haven't said how many games going to be in the season this year. But last game of the season is turn out the lights, pull the plug. You're going elsewhere.
If I'm Dak, if they don't sign me long term, I get my money and I take my rehab real slow. Pace myself in the games, don't do anything too extra. Hey, you make your money. If they don't believe in you enough to pay you, fuck them. Like, take your money, make them write you that $40 million check because that's going to be like the average of the top 5, and walk out the door to a contender.
Well, and the thing is, that's why I'm saying that a trade with the Seahawks makes sense because then you got to sign and trade the Cowboys. I mean, I'm sorry, the Seahawks get a younger player, albeit an injury risk. They
It
get
kind of
rid of
just depends.
They get rid of a discontented Russell Wilson. The Cowboys can still run a mobile type of offense with Russell Wilson, and he comes off a little bit cheaper because he's not going to command $35, $40 million. He's still on the contract with the Seahawks, if I remember correctly. But his number and his cap hit will be significantly less. The Seahawks are going to say, okay, you give us that, but you're going to give us a couple of number ones or a one and a two or like multiple draft picks because they're taking on the risk and they're taking the signing, they're taking on the extra money to
Yeah.
have to work out for Dak Prescott.
I mean, if I get to see him work out and I see that his leg's good and things like that, I'd pull the trigger if I'm the Seahawks because he's a decent quarterback. He's not Russell Wilson, obviously. Nobody really is,
Right.
but he's serviceable in the fact that he'll get you points and things like that while you rebuild in Seattle because that's what they have to do. So I just think Russell's going to end up as a Raider. That's where I think he's going.
That would be an interesting move, him going to the Raiders. But see, the thing you're figuring, who would the Raiders give up to get Russell Wilson? I mean, if I'm the Seahawks, nothing less than a couple of ones are going to satisfy.
Oh yeah, no,
Especially,
the Raiders will send ones, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, whoever they want. Just take them. And then ones and twos.
now, another team that is having quarterback trouble, Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson, not happy in Houston. Houston is basically, the Texans are gutting their team, but they want to build around Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson is arguably not enthralled with having to be a punching bag for the next 3-4 years, wasting his golden years on a team that has no real running game, traded away its best offensive threat in DeAndre Hopkins, let its best defensive player, even though J.J. Watt's 31, but let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
But they want to build a team around Deshaun Watson. I'm looking at, and I saw this trade possibility a couple of weeks ago. One of the Carolina Panthers ring the phone on the Houston Texans console. Say, we'll give you a one, we'll give you Christian McCaffrey for Deshaun Watson. Straight up. Now, I've seen that trade that if I'm the Carolina Panthers GM, I'm on the phone. Hello, Houston, long distance to Houston. Y'all electricity good? Look, Christian McCaffrey in a one. Let's do this.
It's not enough. It's not enough. If I'm Houston, I don't want Christian McCaffrey in a one. I need more. Because they said they want 2 ones, 2 twos, and a player, right?
They were talking, they wanted 2 ones, 2 twos, and 2 young defensive players. Now, I don't think Carolina has that kind of draft. I don't think they have that kind of capital.
Mm-hmm.
But
if I'm Carolina, I want to pair Deshaun Watson with Christian McCaffrey. So I would trade anybody else other than him.
But if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm shooting for the moon. So I miss him among the stars. Shoot for the moon. I mean, you're asking right off the top a whole bunch, and then you get talked down. You don't say, okay, well, I'll go 1 and 2, and then all of a sudden jack the price up. No, you go up high and make somebody bring you down from the ledge. Another team that could be an interesting trading partner with the Houston Texans is the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears famously passed on Deshaun Watson for Mitchell Trubisky. Now, with a chance to play a do-over, they might be able to get Deshaun Watson. I mean, trading Deshaun Watson with Mitchell Trubisky would be absolutely foolish. But
who would you give?
That.
Like, what defensive players would the Texans take back? I mean, other than Khalil Mack.
And if I'm the Bears, I'm not giving up Khalil Mack. He's untouchable.
Right.
But I've heard people talk about the Bears. I've heard them talk about the Panthers.
I hear the 49ers, and that's what I would
I've heard
do.
the 49ers as well. I'm hearing a 3-team trade with the 49ers where the Niners get Deshaun Watson, the Patriots get Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Patriots send a bucket load of picks to the Texans. So that means you would have 2 quarterbacks switching towns. Bill Belichick gets a high enough draft pick. Oh, but that's right. Texans don't have a high draft. They traded it away for the Larry Tunsil trade. The Dolphins have that pick.
Yeah, that's true.
So the Patriots, who have a decently high pick, trading that to Houston Texans. The Houston Texans pick up somebody like a middling quarterback, Mac Jones.
Yeah, plus the 49ers would have to trade somebody like which Bosa do they have? Do they have Nick Bosa?
They have Nick Bosa.
Yeah. They would have to trade like a Nick Bosa or something like that in that trade to get that done.
Now, talking about quarterbacks who've already been traded, Carson Wentz going from Philly to Indianapolis, which I thought was a very puzzling trade, even though his offensive coordinator in Indy is now Indy's coach, Frank Reich. Do you think Carson Wentz can resurrect his career?
Absolutely. He's got a great talent, and whenever he did have a line, he did really well. I think Indy was a quarterback away from doing damage last year. Phillip Rivers was ancient, and he couldn't do anything. Like, you would watch, and you're like, man, I got so jealous of that line as a Falcons fan. I'm just like, man, if I could have half that time, Matt Ryan could do something, right?
Right.
So I'm just in there. Wentz was the most sacked quarterback. So when he has time, he can light it up. So I feel like if they get another receiver, like let's say Juju hits the market, and you get Juju, pair him with T.Y. and Pascal and all those guys there, plus Marlon Mack and whoever other running backs they got, game over. With that defense, game over. Wentz can do a lot of damage.
Now, you talking about Phillip Rivers being ancient. Ben Roethlisberger signed another 1-year deal with the Steelers, took a pay cut.
It's a mistake.
For salary cap purposes. What do you think? And now Ben Roethlisberger threw 602 passes last year. I mean, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, decent numbers. But at 39, Ben Roethlisberger. Did the Steelers make a mistake by holding on to their ancient quarterback who will be in his 16th season in the Steel City?
They made a mistake, but not because he can't play still, right? He can throw a bit. Like, he's old, yeah. So, like, reaction times and things, it's not the same. But the big mistake on my part is he's not a mentor. Like, that's my biggest problem with it. He's the kind of quarterback who's not mentoring the people underneath him. So what's the point of keeping him? Now, if he was like Peyton Manning or somebody, that could mentor someone, right, I'd keep him around. Yeah, I would sacrifice a season where he doesn't do that well or whatever, but he mentors the young quarterback for a year, and then I come out like gangbusters the next year with like a sophomore quarterback who's ready to roll. But he's not a mentor, so that's why I think it's a mistake.
He's not looking like somebody that's going to be able to is willing to hand the reins over to a young buck. And the Steelers haven't had a real solid, they've never really had a solid backup. I mean,
right, because he doesn't mentor anybody.
They've had a Charlie Batch. They've had, Ducky Hodges was high, but he was still really, really green. And he's not going to be a team you're going to just turn over the franchise to. And Ben Roethlisberger doesn't look like the type of player that is going to be willing to just turn over his starting spot anyway or mentor something.
And so Mason Rudolph got a helmet to the face.
The Steelers are basically praying for time. Ben Roethlisberger is 39. they're hoping they can get at least 1, maybe 2 years out of him. A year this year, and then another year to find somebody to be that heir apparent. And
No.
I don't even know if there is a player that the Steelers, because the Steelers are going to be picking later in the draft when they were playoff. All the good quarterbacks are going to be gone.
They'll just end up picking up Cam Newton.
Interesting, to say the very least. Let's take another time now. Come back quick with the Fat Dap Head Slap and the final word from the Wood. Watching Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinions in the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
Fat Dap Head Slap to various golfers, PGA Tour, the Champions Tour, who donned red on the final Sunday of various tournaments in honor of Tiger Woods, who, as you know, was involved in a very serious one-car crash last week. And many of the golfers, Rory McIlroy, Phil Mickelson, just to name a couple of them, it was so interesting to see players standing up for somebody who's beating the bricks off of them for so long. Let's try it again. 3, 2, 1. And let's go to the Fat Dap and Head Slap of the week. Fat Dap going to various PGA golfers who donned red in honor of Tiger Woods, who was involved in a very serious car crash last week. Golfers like Phil Mickelson, Justin Day, Justin Thomas, Min Woo Lee, and Rory McIlroy, and Sebastian Munoz, who all arrived for their final round just this past Sunday wearing red. Now, most people know that Tiger Woods is famous for wearing red on Sunday, usually red and black. But many of these golfers donned red in tribute to Woods, who has been laid up in intensive care in a hospital after, like I said, that mentioned the serious car crash he was in. And Woods, for his part, took note of it and said that he was touched by the gesture. Now, many of these golfers, fierce rivals, and in the case of someone like Phil Mickelson, aren't really like close friends with Tiger Woods. But to see these golfers put their differences aside in a nice tribute for Woods, who we hope here in the Hoodwood as well, hope for a speedy recovery, but for them to make a small token gesture to acknowledge Tiger, basically saying, hey there, get well soon, it was a nice touch. And I thought the PGA golfers were classy in tipping their cap to the legendary golfer. Now, the head slap of the week, this is almost too easy. Greg McDermott, who is the head coach of Creighton University, has been suspended over some idiotic comments. They say it's racially insensitive. I just say it was plain stupid. He made the comment to his team about, quote unquote, not leaving the plantation. In this day and age, making mention of stuff like that is stupid. Plain and simple, stupid. Greg McDermott, who has been a coach for a long time, he's been the coach at Creighton for a little under a decade, a little over a decade, and has been coaching in other places, Iowa State, Northern Iowa, North Dakota State. McDermott's not a naive guy. He should have known better. And though his team stood behind him and McDermott offered to resign his position, Creighton did the right thing by suspending McDermott. The tolerance for racially insensitive language, jargon to motivate players is insensitive, if not just downright stupid. Shame on Greg McDermott. You should know better. And that's a very easy head slap of the week. And now, without much further ado, let's wrap it up strong with the final word from the Wood. Now, I'm not one that follows soccer very heavily, like the players and their various movements from team to team. So I had to do a little research on this when I read about the former LA Galaxy star Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Harder to say than it sounds and looks, but Zlatan's comments about LeBron James is basically telling him to shut up and dribble. Sort of like Laura Ingraham did a couple of years ago when she made the now infamous comment that was directed at both LeBron James and Kevin Durant to more or less shut up and dribble, keep us entertained. Zlatan basically said, stick to sports, stick to what you're good at. He's good at dribbling the ball. He's good at playing soccer, or football as he called it. LeBron James is good at basketball, and that he should stick to his sport. This is conveniently overlooking the fact that LeBron James has been a social activist, and as someone who's put his money where his mouth is, opening an I Promise school, donating literally millions of dollars to various charitable causes throughout the world, and being someone who is almost outspoken in his desire for social justice and change for a better world. He was one that led a player protest during the bubble session during last NBA season. But the thing that annoys me the most about these players who say shut up and dribble, they have a platform. If they choose not to use it, that's their business. If they choose to use their platform for furthering their causes, whether it be charitable or promoting their own brand, that's their business. But for someone to tell another person to stay in their lane, shut up and dribble, stick to sports, that's out of line. Because someone like Zlatan doesn't like it, oh, well, everyone should heed his word. If you do something that I don't like, I'm usually going to ignore it. You have a political opinion I don't like, usually I'll ignore it. But something like this, telling others to what to do, that's where I'm drawing the line. Now, could it make me a hypocrite talking about Zlatan and telling him not to tell him? No. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy. Zlatan has his platform. He speaks, and the people of the football soccer world listen. LeBron James speaks,
and people of the basketball fans, and many people in the world listen. Zlatan should stay in his own lane, play football, and if he doesn't want to be a social justice warrior, that's his business. But it's out of line for him to tell other people not to take up the cause. And that is the final word for the Wood. With the music coming up in the background, you know that means your time in the Hoodwood is just about done. And I thank you so much for your visit again this week. Now, if you want to send me an email, the show email is kjgreen@blackbanditproductions.com. You can send me questions, comments, show ideas, praise, and yes, criticism. I read every email that's sent and try to reply in a timely manner. The show airs weekly on a number of sites, including YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and a number of other web hosting and podcasting sources. Check your local listings for time in your area. You can visit the show site You can also check me out on Facebook at Black Productions and Enterprises, and also that show catalog and show reviews. Pick it up on time now. I also have a Twitter handle. Thank you, Ray Pictures, for their continued executive production of the show. Once again, to my co-host, Matt Friday. Next week, it's dub time. Chop it up now, football, basketball, and all sorts of stuff. So that's that. Once again, my co-host, Matt Friday. We'll see you next time out with I'm KJ Green.
Sports from the Hoodwood
is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation
of a 551 Audio and Films production.